is a village rich in winter sports history. Cortina played host to the 1956 Winter Olympics, which saw over 800 athletes from 32 nations compete. For the first time ever, the games were witnessed by a global audience as television beamed pictures of the skiers, the skaters, and the sledders all around the world. And bobsledding was quite a different sport back then. You'll notice the open sleds much more dangerous than those of today, and the natural track built right into the ground. Italy's Lamberto Dalla Costa struck gold in the two-man. The games also marked the last Olympic medal by an American, Art Tyler, with the bronze, and Switzerland's Franz Koppes won the four-man at age 46. Well, Gunther Huber just won a silver in the two-man event and has a big lead after one heat in the four-man here in Cortina. 22/100ths of a second ahead of Wolfgang Hoppe. Brian Scheimer of the United States is in third place, but there was a lot more excitement than just the leaders during the early portion of heat number 2. This is Russia's Pavel Chevlasky. And the sled would go down at the finish curve. Chevlasky, one of the promising young drivers on the circuit, took a 6th place in the two-man at last year's World Championships, but suffers the price of competing on the big show on one of the big tracks. Chevlasky, fortunately, walked away from the sled uninjured. And that was not the only incident earlier here in the second heat. This is Austria sled number 2, Hannes Conti, same dangerous finish curve. And look how exposed those heads were as the sled crashed around, but the force of friction made that sled correct itself and cross the finish line, and the athletes were no worse for the wear. Well, now to the matter at hand. Back to the top we go, and we start second heat competition amongst the contenders. This is Germany sled number 1, Dirk Wiese. The crew is Michael Lechmeyer, Christoph Bartsch, and Uwe Kai Kollard. Their start time 4.90, 3/100ths of a second off the pace. Now, all this team has done has entered 2 races so far this season, La Plagne and Innsbruck, and won 2 races. So Wiese is perfect as a driver, and at the latest split, he is in a dead heat. Still ahead, we have 4 more sleds to come your way, including the Americans and the Italians, and another Austrian sled. But this is Dirk Wiese, now 6/100ths of a second up. A 4th place finisher in the four-man event at last year's Corel World Championships in Calgary, Canada. A bump there. He continues to extend his lead. We'll see if it decreases. Ooh, a skid. And this finish curve is paying the price on even the most experienced drivers. However, great speed and great time as Harold Jodai sees his teammate Dirk Wiese move him out of first place. And another German sled, Wiese, Germany number 2, in the lead.
If you want full office suite power at a word
Sleigh Series. Well, it's been a disappointing season so far in the Corel World Cup Tour for this man, Hubert Schoesser of Austria. 27:12, the split time. This should be tight. 10 seconds, or rather a 1/10 of a second off the pace in 6th place. So potential disappointment again for Schoesser. Will he hang on to at least move into the top 3? He was in 4th place after the first heat. Schoesser not chosen to compete at the 1992 Olympic Games, an Olympics won by teammate Ingo Appelt, but he won a World Championship medal the year after that, and now he has moved into 2nd place here. So Dirk Wiese of Germany maintains the lead and still stays in fairly good shape. The total time, 1:47.31 for Austria sled number 1, currently in 2nd place. Well, it's time now for the top 3 sleds after the first heat. Here's the winner in the two-man event. Certainly the surprise this season, although no stranger to the sport. The United States is Brian Scheimer. Put down a great start in the two-man. 4.87, the best start time that's happened in the second heat. 3/100ths of a second ahead, a 4.84. Look at the drive on the part of these 4 athletes. They are all pounding their way down, their heads straight. They load into the sled with precision, and now they're 5/100ths of a second up. Scheimer hailing from Naples, Florida, in the southern Sun Belt reaches of the United States. A former university football player. 36.13 the split time. They're 200ths of a second in back of Dirk Wiese. Wiese has won each of the two-man or four-man competitions so far this season, but Scheimer comes off of two straight two-man victories. Now it's time for the American to show his versatility. A bump right before the finish, and around the finish curve, they do it by 1300ths of a second. USA sled number one and driver Brian Scheimer move into the lead. Dirk Wiese will not stay perfect in 1997. The best he can hope for is second place, while the Americans wait to see if they will sweep the two- and four-man competitions here in Italy. Now, Brian Scheimer, as was noted in the two-man, has become an experienced pilot. He works hard during the summer on working on his driving skills on bobsled simulators. He visualizes the tracks, and he has certainly been around the World Cup Tour enough to know virtually every track. Very good riding on a very tough track. The legendary Wolfgang Hoppe, Germany sled number one. They will give up a little time at the start. Scheimer's time is on the left, 4.84. Expect a 4.87 or so, and 8.9. 500ths of a second off the pace. Karsten Umbach, Sven Rohr, and the veteran Rennie Hannemann, Hoppe's longtime brakeman, make up the rest of the crew. Shocking developments at the last event, or actually two events ago in La Plagne, as Hoppe finished in fourth place, and it marked the first time in 3 years that Wolfgang Hoppe failed to win a World Cup medal. 36.13 the split time. They're chasing their 400ths of a second back. Brian Scheimer, USA sled number one, at the finish, and the Italians are at the start as the final sled, but this is Germany number one, 39-year-old Wolfgang Hoppe, and he has gone over in the finish before the finish curve. 53-54, but the real question now is this great champion okay? A rare mistake from a driver you would never expect mistakes from. So there is really no celebration on the part of the Americans and Brian Scheimer. They know they have the lead, but the entire bobsled world is holding its breath. This is the first crash in the long and storied career of Wolfgang Hoppe. There are first aid and medical people all around the track. It appears everyone is moving. So important that the athletes stay inside the sled after it's gone over. My, oh my, this is an incredible scenario here. As Wolfgang Hoppe, winner of 6 Olympic medals and more World Championship and Olympic medals than anyone in the history of this sport, shows that he too, in fact, is human and can suffer the fate of a tough, tough track in a tough, tough sport. Well, here is a look as we try to dissect what happened. It's just a question of a fast track, but look at those heads exposed to the solid cement wall. It is amazing and remarkable of the safety in this sport that appears so dangerous that they walk away from this sled. First place doesn't matter at this point. The crew is all okay. Well, Brian Scheimer is in the lead, and we have just one sled remaining. You may recall, in the two-man event, Gunther Huber finished behind Brian Scheimer, and on his home track here in Italy, he certainly doesn't want to see a repeat of that. 53.99. Keep that in your mind. The time on the left, that is the time Huber and the Italians will need to win the gold medal. If not, the Americans will have swept the gold in both the two- and four-man. As I've said so many times, he will give up a bit at the start, but expect very few mistakes from Gunther Huber. Only 200ths of a second he gives up at the start. That bodes well for the Italian. His crew of Marco Mancini, Antonio Tartaglia, and Massimiliano Rota. This has proven to be one of the most dramatic races in the history of the World Cup Bobsleigh Series, not only with the great speeds, not only with the hometown potential victory here, but with the crashes and danger. If Wolfgang Hoppe cannot negotiate his way safely across the finish line, who can, as this track continues to get eaten up? Pay attention to the split times. Huber is looking good. 0.04 of a second ahead of the Americans right now, heading to the final few turns. Here comes Italy, #1. They need a 53.99, and they're over. They have gone over as well, but look at the finish time. They had crossed the finish line, and so by a wide margin, the Italians may not know it now, but they have won this race on this home track. The question is, not have they won, but are they okay? They are quickly out of the sled. That is great news on 2 counts, as the Italians are okay from this crazy finish curve crash, and they have won the race. A race that ends none too soon, the way this track was getting chewed up. One of the most remarkable and dramatic finishes ever in this storied track and in the history of Corel World Cup bobsledding. I've got to say, it's the most exciting finish I've seen in the many races I've covered. So the final standings here at the Corel World Cup, 4-man of Cortina, Italy. Huber takes it by 3/800ths ahead of Brian Scheimer. Dirk Wiese, after 2 wins, comes out in 3rd place. Checking out the Corel World Cup standings, very tight amongst the top 3, but Gunther Huber is the king for the day in the sport of bobsledding. We come to you next from Koenigsegg, Germany. So long from Cortina.